Yo, how's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Now, in today's video, I'm going to be breaking down one of the most exciting fights that's going to go down at UFC Seattle Cejudo versus Song Yadong. And that's the fight between Rob Font and Gene Matsumoto. Now, this is a really interesting fight because it's a young fighter, a guy who just got into the UFC versus a very experienced and a freaking veteran of the sport, that being Rob Font, a fan favorite. I'm gonna give you guys my early prediction for this fight. Now, I really do think that the UFC does a great job at pretty much setting up their younger fighters for success, and doing specific matchups that are pretty eye catching in terms of entertainment, as well as creating hype for future fights of their fighter. And with that being said, I feel like Rob Font is pretty much on his way out. I think he's maybe a couple years away from retiring, maybe one or two. With that being said, I feel like this is a pretty obvious pick in my honest opinion. I feel like John Matsumoto stylistically and systematically is just a better fighter than Rob Font. I'm gonna tell you guys exactly why. I think that Rob Font, I think we've all seen his specific performances against a lot of fighters in the UFC, and yeah, he does have glimpses of being a very top-notch fighter, but he makes a lot of mistakes, and in my opinion, I just feel like one of his biggest mistakes in the octagon is that he sometimes can be a very predictable fighter. Against Corey Sandhagen, in my honest opinion, he was being a very predictable guy. The fight against Jose Aldo, against he fought very like Captain Obvious type. The fight against Marlon Vera, same thing. Against Adrian Yanez, he did pick him apart, and of course against Kyler Phillips, he managed to get a victory over him. But in my honest opinion, I feel like the main thing about Rob Font that we could all expect from him is the fact that he's gonna use his boxing to try to win this fight. Now, I think that in the 50-50, if Rob Font tries to primarily attack with his boxing, I think he's going to get picked apart. If we just look at some of these statistics here, most of the statistics are just on the body and on the head. We do have these 60% percentiles on, the legs, but in my honest opinion, I think that the reason why he has such a high percentage is because he has fighters that really don't expect him to throw that many kicks, and he's able to just land kicks because people are expecting him to come in to just use his boxing, and they kind of catch fighters off guard, whenever he does throw kicks. Now, if we look at Gene Matsumoto's percentages right now, of course, we know that he hasn't had some of the bigger names or some of the bigger talent in the UFC just yet. And I think that right now he's going to be going into a transitioning period because Rob Font is a very experienced guy, but he has a lot of percentages, or most of their percentages, with leg kicks. And in my honest opinion, I think that he's going to be doing a great job at breaking Rob Font's base. That being said, I think that John Matsumoto is going to win this fight. I don't think it's going to be a knockout. I don't think that he's going to show, too crazy deep performances in terms of skill. I think that he is going to win the majority of the rounds. I feel like he does make some questionable decisions in the octagon based on the couple performances that we've seen from Gene Matsumoto. But I honestly really do believe that the UFC is trying to set this guy for success, and he is, undefeated right now. And in his last fight, especially in the Dana White Contender Series, he was showing to be a very promising fighter. So I think that Gene Matsumoto, based on statistics and based on the system that he does fight with, I think that it's a lot more polished than Rob Font. Obviously, Rob Font has the most experience, but he is 37 years old. He is nowhere near close to his prime anymore, and he has been very inconsistent in the past couple of years, only getting two wins in the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 fights in the UFC. That's not too good, in my honest opinion. I really do think that they're setting up Gene Matsumoto, like I said, for success. And I do think that Gene Matsumoto might end up winning this matchup because the younger guys, I mean, let's be honest about something. I think that as the years go by, we are gonna definitely notice some things with the younger guys, and that's the fact that they are much more polished in terms of being an overall better MMA fighter. Right now, I think we're kind of exiting, towards the idea that UFC fighters fight with a specific base dominance. I think that John Matsumoto right now is pretty much going to come into this fight winning, pretty much based on the fact that he is a better overall MMA fighter. And he's going to definitely, in my opinion, take advantage of the fact that Rob Font, doesn't do a very good job at defending from the long distance. I think that John Matsumoto is definitely going to be testing Rob Font's defense, especially at range with his kicks, and I think that he's probably going to be picking him apart from range. And then whenever he does see Rob Font, getting hurt, he's probably going to go in and try to, finish the fight. But as we all know, Rob Font is one tough dude. He is one tough, durable veteran of the sport. Like I said, it's going to take a lot for John Matsumoto to put away Rob Font. And in my opinion, I just don't see this fight, like I said, ending in a finish. We have seen, glimpses of, Gene Matsumoto using some grappling and some jujitsu in his past promotion. But we haven't really seen too much of it in the UFC yet. I mean, yeah, he has had some exchanges here and there whenever he is using his grappling, his wrestling, and his jujitsu in the octagon in the UFC. But I just think that right now I just don't really see that happening in the next fight. I think that John Matsumoto is gonna definitely try to keep this little hype that he has going in the UFC, and he's gonna take a little bit of a risk and try to stand in front of Rob Font and go, in front of him in like a 50-50. Go into these exchanges, bite on his mouthpiece a little bit and try to win the fight doing that. If he has to go into his grappling, wrestling, jujitsu game, I think that may be an area where, he is definitely comfortable, in my honest opinion. However, with that being said, I mean, some of the positives that we could potentially see from Rob Font is if Gene Matsumoto makes a mistake of not using his range to fight Rob Font has a really good jab. And he doesn't just use his jab in a way that most fighters do it, like they try to use it with range. No, Rob Font creates space using his jab, that we've seen him do against Adrian Jonas, for example, where he would literally use his jab to buy himself space, if the fighter is deciding not to kick. If Gene Matsumoto makes the mistake of doing that, Rob Font is definitely going to try to pick him apart in that direction. Rob Font, we've seen him, land some pretty nasty boxing before. So Gene Matsumoto hopefully comes into this fight, and does some very smart decision making. He cannot afford to make rookie mistakes in the UFC, especially against someone like Rafon who has a lot of experience. That being said, if Gene Matsumoto comes into the matchup fighting the way that he has in his last three fights, I think he's gonna win this match by decision. I think there's gonna be a finish. Gene Matsumoto definitely needs to be tested against these experienced fighters first before he goes again and tries to fight for the best of the best out there. But I think that Rob Font is going to be a great opponent for him, and we'll see what goes down. With that being said, let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. As always, it's a pleasure. Peace out and have a good one.